Hey there, this is Casey with the M&A Launchpad Podcast. Put it on your calendar. This is a do not miss one-day event. There's going to be incredible headliners, but really at the end of the day, you're going to get a chance to talk to people that have made acquisitions, learn from some of the challenges that they've made, because this is definitely a challenging process. But more importantly, there's going to be people there that can help you and support you along the way, from great vendors, quality of earnings, how to run the due diligence process, and how do I get financed? How do I raise capital? How do I structure all of these things? It's going to be hundreds of people that are all focused, like-minded people. And man, everyone that's come has given us incredible feedback. We look forward to seeing you.
On today's episode, we interviewed a friend of ours, Mandy McAllister, where we talked about really what it's like as a woman, right, to go off and kind of start off in apartments, buy your own business, and at the same time, get involved with a community of women to help you grow, learn, and succeed. And really, Mandy is a person that I look up to a lot, right? High energy, very self-aware, and really thoughtful about what she's doing and how she's doing it. And there's a lot of valuable pieces to that. So Casey, what were some of your takeaways?
Being a dad, two daughters, and seeing them grow, and, finding people like Mandy that's, and for the guys that are listening, if you're skipping because it's a female, you're crazy, because all of those things that they see differently are the things that we should be adding into what we do to make things scale and grow. And Mandy has a very good way of looking at the way she measures risk. She's also talking about how she looks at her portfolio, right? Using real estate, cash flow to invest in businesses, make small bets, improve those, because she has a number that she wants to hit at a certain time. And you got to ask yourself why you're doing this. What is it? It can't just be because you want to make a lot of money. You got to have a strategy and a plan. And I think Mandy hit it right on the nose with a lot of those things. And then the challenges and the journey she's been through. It's great.
Yeah, and on this episode, we kind of talk about buying a small apartment, then we shift into buying a car wash and some of the things that entails, and then ultimately buying a motel, right? And some of the things to think about as you buy a motel and how do you grow a motel, and really kind of then from there, right, shifting into the community aspect. So lots of information in this one.
All right, guys, just take 1 second here real quick. When you're buying a business, ensuring the financial health of the company is critical. And that's where a quality of earnings partner comes in. Quality of earnings gives you confidence in the financials of the company that you're purchasing. It aims to protect your investment and ensure that you're stepping into a profitable business on day one. Patrick of O'Connell Advisory Group is your dynamic quality of earnings partner. He's here to help you buy the right business on your timeline. Patrick's entire practice is focused on business acquisitions. Your niche is his niche. And over the past decade, Patrick's helped more than 200 buyers like yourself successfully purchase and operate enduring, profitable businesses. In fact, Patrick's helped some listeners of this show. So if you're buying, looking for help with the quality of earnings, financial due diligence, network capital, and more, head to o'connelladvisorygroup.com or just click the link in the show notes.
Hey, Mandy, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm super excited to be here, guys. Long time coming.
Oh, I know it's taken us way too long. We've known Mandy for 6 years, and probably should have had her on the podcast sooner, but here we are. So Mandy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I spent the bulk of my career in medical device sales and started buying apartment buildings, which, Feras, that's how you and I became friends.
Mm-hmm.
I led a meetup in Chicago and you guys were down in Houston. And then when I bought enough apartment buildings, I didn't need that W-2 anymore. So in 21, I was able to leave my W-2 largely because of the bravery I found by being part of an organization called Go Abundance Women. I saw other people living big and doing these brave entrepreneurial things, and I knew I wanted to do it too. And then actually a couple of years into that, quote unquote, retirement, I saw that the richest people in Go Abundance were the people who had a business interest. So I leaned into buying businesses that had a heavy real estate lean, because that's the language that I spoke, and ended up buying a car wash and a motel in addition to the apartments. And that's kind of how I ran into you guys with M&A Launchpad. So I have found some success in the business stuff and a lot of success in the apartment stuff, and really leaning into making the motel is what has the bulk of my attention in business right now.
All right. So you basically did it on speed run. We can call it a wrap on the show. No, I'm kidding. Right. So there's a lot to unpack in that. So let's just maybe go through the different steps. Right. So you started with apartments. What did you like about apartments? What did you not like apartments before you decided that, hey, I want to get into, businesses?
So when it comes to like, I like safety. I like things to be boring when it comes to my money. And when I did a master's in behavioral economics, and the idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs says that you can live every day of your life and never own a Bitcoin, but you can't live a single day. None of the 8 billion people on the planet can live a single day without shelter. So the surest bet in the whole world is to buy something that you get to pay off that someone will want to live in. So that kind of provided me what I call a floor of income that pays me every single month forever. So now I don't ever have to be thirsty to go do a deal in business, in real estate, in anything, because I know my stuff is provided for. I get to live the life that I want. However, once that floor of income is provided, then you want to figure out how to grow in terms of lifestyle, in terms of experience, in terms of all of the things, right? And when I saw the richest people, how they were doing it, there was always a business interest. And actually part of that epiphany came, Casey, from one of your talks at an early M&A Launchpad, that graphic that you show that talks about the different strata of what your net worth is and what it's comprised of. And if you want to go 10 million or above, you really need a business interest. So that's why I started buying businesses.
Got it. So it sounds like really the problem with apartments, it's easy to get some, but it's hard to really scale that without significant capital, right? I mean, that's really what it boils down to, right?
It's
Versus
a
with a
real
business
slow
that
burn.
less capital can go much further. Right? I like to tell people in apartments, you're buying an apartment, let's say it's a 5 cap. Well, that 5 cap converted to business multiples is, or actually converted the other way around. We're buying it at a 5 cap, but if you're buying a business at a 4X, that's a 25 cap. Right. So there's a 5X difference in terms of how far your money will go for each dollar.
Except you have very little to no collateral in most of your acquisitions, right? Unless you are buying the real estate, which we'll talk about kind of your mentality around buying the companies with real estate backed. And so you're trading risk, right? Because the business also can go to complete zero. I'm not saying apartment can't, but you still have the collateral.
No, and
there.
Apartments will never go to zero, right? And it's there's always some intrinsic value.
Yeah, so those are those trades, but you're right. The cap, I mean, you can make a lot more money in a business. And I also think the business provides a lot of other things inside of the business that you can't necessarily do in other investment vehicles when it comes to, using cash value whole life insurance to give yourself key man, to add all these other vehicles into your business that you can create some leverage off of. So it's that business journey, allows for some other things that help create that wealth.
The way that I tend to look at it is I've got a heavy engine for cash flow that I take that cash flow to put it in the bucket that is safe and forever. And, my husband retires in 11 years. I got 11 years of hustle left in me. So I need to make the heavy churn of cash flow as much as possible so that we can, be in the sunset all the time in a cabin in Tennessee, so
that's
I got
where you're calling in from, right?
Yeah, right. No, I'm suburbs of Chicago right now.
Got it.
But it is amazing in your mind, and that's kind of what got me into the whole game was, I read Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki and, really looking at W-2 income to self-employment income, which I spent a lot of time in my life. As you start to build these businesses, you're really kind of self-employed for a very long time, but you're still trading your time for money. But if you want to get over to that other side of the quadrant, right, you got to be either a business owner or an investor. The ultimate goal is to be a full-time investor, right? That means that you've got plenty of cash rolling in. So you don't have to do all the legwork we do. You can invest, that's the beauty of it, Oh,
that's what most of our passive investors are looking for, right? Being able to deploy their capital.
Yeah. So that's what drove me into the game was to think about how Kiyosaki talks about getting those different quadrants. And, the business one is, I think, a very challenging quadrant. That's why the upside and the rewards can be so significant because of the risk that we're trading.
Yeah.
And brain space. I talk a lot about, the way I do things, I don't really take outside capital. I kind of all do it with my own capital or with partners and their capital. And the brain space associated with having a car wash. Yes, it's we make I don't know, probably $70,000 at the end of the day for 150 in. It was a very little bet, but 50% cash on cash is incredible. But the level of brain space, guys, like that is not a requirement of my apartments. So I think that is a real kind of missed piece when people want to try to figure out what's better for me, real estate or a business. You got to factor in the brain space piece.
Oh, brain space. And I mean, even in the real estate side, people don't understand risk adjusted returns. So there's risk adjusted returns, there's time adjusted returns, there's brain space adjusted returns. You have to weigh them all in, and it's not just about the raw number at the end of the day. But I think to maybe kind of tie it all together. So you did the apartment side, then you joined GoBundance Women. And as part of that, you started to see that, hey, some of the most successful women were people that had their own businesses. And, that allowed you to really start to kind of just be around people that help you make that mind shift to, as Casey mentioned, get to the other quadrant, which is, okay, I want to be in this other quadrant where maybe I'm trading time for a business, right? And ultimately maybe to grow to where I can be an investor where I'm just trading time for money, right? Or sorry, trading money for money, essentially is what you're doing, right? And so maybe give some examples of people that you met in the group that just helped you get that inspiration, and ultimately, how did you make the jump to what that actually meant? Did it mean buying your own business? Did it mean starting your own business? Because a lot of people tend to think it's about starting a business.
Yeah, we do these things called pods. So a small group of 4 to 7 women that meet weekly, and all of the women that were in my pod that met weekly, they were business owners, and I was kind of scratching and clawing to get up to a $3 million net worth, and they were well into the 40s and 50s. So it felt very clear that if I just focus how I spent my time and my attention on one big thing, then if that was my ultimate goal, then that's how I'm going to end up getting there, right? So when it came to like a choice to invest in a business, because I then got to serve in leadership at GoBundance, I became introduced to Walker Deibel, who he wrote what I call the Bible, my gateway drug to buying businesses, buy them build. And the idea is just, it makes so much sense. Both my parents were entrepreneurs. My dad, the farmer, had this forever existing business that continues to exist. And my mom had a startup that didn't really make it, So I saw firsthand in my childhood that buying something that existed will continue to grow. And a startup is where, things can fizzle out pretty quickly. So I wanted to do something that was heavy real estate because I wanted to keep that real estate professional status and continue to be involved in the depreciation stuff and having the bulk of my time spent in real estate. So that is why it was a motel or a car wash.
Yeah, and the other thing about the car wash, right? I mean, it shouldn't once it's up and it's operational in a team, right? Is it like one of those fully operational ones that someone can just drive through and pay, or does it take people? I mean, how does that business kind of flow into?
And tell us also what we don't know about car washes that we should know.
So when I was under contract to buy the car wash, I had a call with Walker and was so excited to tell my friend who, talked me into buying a business that I'm under contract to buy a business. And I tell him I'm under contract for a car wash. And he goes, "Oh, I never own a car wash." I'm like,
"Oh man.
Oh,
no,
why? Say more, right? So he said, something's always broken at a car wash. I'd never own one. And I'm like, okay, well, we did go through with it, obviously, but it kind of, helped me with a reframe that it's not some 5-alarm fire when something's broken at the car wash, because my expectation is something is always broken. We have a 7-bay self-serve car wash that, if something is broken, if a hose gets ripped off, then, we put a cone in front of it, and we have a relationship with vendors that can fix that type of thing. And we have some college athletes that work for us, college baseball players that come in and change the trash out and rinse off the quarters and things like that. So it is largely, most days I don't think about it, but when there are problems, the day after my wedding, someone ran into a wall with their dually pickup truck. So we left the brunch that we were at, my husband and I, new business owners, newly remarried, right, to go to, deal with the broken wall that we were worried about structural abilities, right? So it's significantly larger in terms of brain space, like we were talking about.
Yeah, but one of the things, kind of like when you think about due diligence
Mhm.
on certain type of assets that you're going to buy, if so we hear a lot from investors or buyers that say, "Hey, I'm agnostic." Okay, that is one of the terms, and we laugh about it because everybody has an opinion. Is being somebody that's agnostic a good thing? Or investors? No. So one of the things, being buyers of a manufacturing company is you have to know that, like a car wash, like anything that has assets that help you generate income, you're gonna typically have breakdowns all the time. And so, like my first 6-8 months being at H&M, I felt every time, hey, the machine's down, this is down. It like would make my stomach hurt. And I remember the seller looking at me like, what? Like, it's all the time. Like, something is broken every second of the day. It's not a big deal. And getting through that kind of part, right? So, like in your due diligence, when you make your next acquisition, we'll talk about your motel or hotel or Holiday Inn, whichever one it is, whatever it is. But you kind of you learn from your next acquisition, right? You start to go, hey, these were things I should have done, or man, I'm not sure I like this. For me, I really enjoy it. I love the fact that if you get a really good, solid maintenance team and a really good person, that instead of just fixing the rebuilding, well, man, you're now putting your assets in a better place than when you bought them. But again, it takes that, like, oh my God, things are breaking all the time.
But also, it's just like in apartment buildings. You need the scale to be able to afford the team.
Yeah.
That if I wanted to go buy 6 more of these, then I could totally afford the right people to be handling the things so that I can buy back that brain space. But what I found, and another thing that I've observed from Go Abundance Women and our, brother side too, that those people who go to those 9-figure net worths, they do one thing really, really well. So
Mm.
I became a beginner when I bought a car wash. I became a beginner when I bought a motel. I need to. My plan is to really specialize in a better way and not force myself to become a beginner and put efforts in the same direction so I can grow further faster.
Yeah, because you got 11 years. I mean, you got to knock this out, like
Right?
10,000 hours. Like, you got to get your 10,000 hours like as soon as possible, right? So from the car wash, you then take a leap, right? You say, hey, I found is it a motel?
hmm It's roughly
Okay.
the same time I bought the car wash and the motel because I knew I wanted a business and I made 2 little
Okay.
bets roughly the same
Okay.
time.
Well,
So
most people wouldn't do that.
no, of course not. But she's got 11 years, man.
Why
She's got
would
to
I
get this
do
thing
that,
done.
Feras? Have you known me to do things the simple way?
Knowing you, I'm not surprised. I would have probably done the same thing, to be honest, but that's also why we're not most people. So
So tell us about the motel journey, right? So the car wash, you've got the concerns there. Things break all the time, but you then
Mhm.
adapt to that. How does a motel, how's it different?
Yeah. So, I mean, I speak small apartment buildings. Like my whole shtick in apartment buildings is the mid-size multi, the call it 15 units to about 50 units. That's really kind of how I bought my way out of my W-2. So I gave a presentation preaching the gospel of mid-size multis to somebody, and a guy asked for a follow-up call after he saw on MLS an 18-room motel, an hour 45 minutes outside of Minneapolis, St. Paul. He's like, I want to reposition this into apartments. And, it's 300 square feet. It's a super rural town, but like right next to a lake. And Wisconsin lake culture, guys, if you don't know it, they drink, right? So, they
Okay.
need a chance, a place to stay. So it made more sense to make it stay short-term rentals rather than apartments because the population like 5X's over the summer. A lot of money comes in from Minneapolis into this little town called Balsam Lake. And so I talked him into keeping it like that, but he, a lot of things happen and I am now, the owner. He decided not to move forward and I bought out a partner. The difference there is, you can find a short-term rental host, co-host, property manager. That it's a lot more expensive than a long-term rental. You'll pay roughly 8 or 10% for a mid-sized multi if it's a long-term rental per month of top-line revenue to that property manager. But you're going to pay 20+% if it's short-term rentals. And
Oh,
it
wow.
is the expectation of communication for an Airbnb or a VRBO is very different than if you're going to a motel that looks like it might have some someone on site. So the growing pains with the management, I had a partner that's what she does. She just lived 1,000 miles away, and her play just didn't translate at all. And we ended up with lots of really terrible reviews. And I was able to buy her out last summer and reposition, and now we're thriving. Just took property management in-house, and it's all systems, it's all setting the expectation, it's all SOP, and make things repeatable that I know from my other business stuff and my past lives, right? So it's that business is shining because of the things that I know that I'm good at, the providing connection. I've also decided that the straight line of all of the things that I do, Go Bun and Swim, is connection. Our events that we get to do together, that's people connecting, right? Like where you live your life, that is building a connection with your family. This Lumberjill Lodge is connection for girls trips. The car wash does not fit into that. It's one of these things is not like the other. So that is why we're divesting that and really focusing in on the motel for now.
So I think you would probably ask the same thing, but I'm curious. So, okay, so you take, so the motel, right? You never doing it before. It's a different, it has a lot to do with taking care of people and making it an experience. So what did you do, right? It wasn't working and now you're making it work. What was it? I know it's standard operating procedures, but what did you do? There's got to be some cosmetics, some brands, some things that you did to make it fun.
So, back to my geekhood of being a behavioral economist, there's these authors that I love, Chip and Dan Heath, they're brothers, behavioral economists. They wrote a book called Thinking in Moments. And one of the stories they talk about is a motel in LA. I think I'm going to totally butcher this story, but it's a good point that, it has the best reviews of any LA area hotel. Not because they're better than the Ritz, better than the Waldorf Astoria, but what you do is you pick up a red phone and it'll say, popsicle hotline, how may I help you? And you can tell them that I would like 3 grapes and an orange, please. And they will come out with a tray and make it this incredible experience, right? So the thing that people remember in moments, in experiences, that's what we're selling, a clean room and an experience at the motel. People remember the beginning, they remember the end, and they remember the peak. So if you screw up the beginning and they can't get into their room, which was the thing that was happening in past management, we've already lost them, right? If you screw up the end that, somebody, barges in on them, that's also terrible, right? And then, the question I continue to ask my team, and I hired a guy to live on site who is, strangely enough, former corporate Walmart.com guy who wants a fun retirement job. So that's kind of the perfect fit. But, how do I make it an experience? And these Instagrammable moments of, a little swing with Lumberjill Lodge above you. We cleaned out the shed in the back that we're going to host women's things at. Like I'm bringing Go Bun and Swim in there to do a summit where we business plan and we talk about the things in our lives that we want to move forward. So really nurturing the stuff and doubling down on the places that build that experience, build that connection. That's what's working.
And so for people just listening, I mean, can you maybe walk through some of the numbers of that? Right.
Sure.
How should people look at that as a business, right? Maybe what'd you get it for? How'd you put the stack together? And, how profitable or not profitable is it?
Well, I mentioned little bets, right? So the motel itself had a lot of damage. So of the 18 rooms, only like 10 of them were usable when I acquired it. I only paid $326,000 for it, but it needed a lot of love. I have, over the course of the last couple years, put in probably about 200,000 or so. Because it's commercial real estate, it's worth, a multiple of how much money it makes. Over the summer, it's a very, seasonal business, because it's a lake in Wisconsin and nobody wants to go by the lake when it's, you can't ice fish, but it's still too cold. Over the summer months, we cash flowed after debt service and everything, $20,000 a couple months. So, that is worth.
And what occupancy do you need to be at?
Well, when I acquired it, let me tell this story 2 ways. So when I acquired it, that $327,000, like I like to think in worst case scenario. How do I not lose this property? What's the worst thing that could happen? And can I meet whatever bar to keep that worst case scenario from happening? I needed like a 7% occupancy to break even. right? And I figured over the course of the year, I can pull off a 7% occupancy. Well, we are very good at filling up over the weekend, and the weekend is roughly 30% of the week. So over our peak season, we kind of top out right now at around 35-40%. But if we hit that 35-40%, we're cash flowing about 20 grand.
Nice.
That is awesome. So let me do this real quick. I kind of want to talk about mindset because, you talk about your community, you talk about a lot of these things and the people around you that help you make that decision. I would say for our listeners, I would say many of them have not taken a leap. They've not said, hey, I'm going to go take these risks, right? And they're significant risk, no matter what size. So how does talk about community, but also talk a little bit about your mindset. How did you get to a position to where you could go, hey, you know what? I'm going to take these risks. What are those things that you did? I know you started with multifamily, but still you had to take a risk.
Yeah, for me, I'm super pragmatic. I'm super, let's figure out that worst case scenario and figure out how to not make that happen. So actually in the real estate stuff, I had a sales number that was not possible because I knocked it out of the park the year before. My boss was pressuring me to do stuff that I knew was not okay. And I was having a panic attack in a parking garage at a hospital. And I was a brand new single mom. I had just gotten divorced. So I thought am I going to have to entertain doing the stuff that I know is wrong? Right. And then I realized, oh my God, I have $3,000 coming in from cash flow from my apartment buildings. I'm not going to die. Oh my God, if I just pay attention to that number, if that's the thing I put my time on, then I'm going to be able to do whatever I want. So whatever risk I'm taking, it's not really a risk when I can figure out the math of it. So I think really figuring out worst case scenario and putting truth to the problem. Whenever you got a problem, the best way to solve that problem is to put more truth to the problem. And there's nothing more true than numbers. So if you can just figure out what reserves are going to make you feel whole, are going to make you feel safe, what income you're going to need to make happen in order to feel like you can move to the next level, so that risk feels that an asymmetric risk reward. That's really what I go for. I bet a penny to make $10 in every case in what I do. So I think for me, it's the mindset reframe is how do you reposition the thing that's to in a different true way that's going to serve you. So the figuring out of the worst case scenario is something that really helped me.
And so then, but maybe tie that to, who did you feel like just being around helped you accomplish that? And, and I know we've mentioned Go Abundance Women a few times, right? And what's your kind of involvement there, right? And what's the mission and the goal there?
So I joined as a member. The minute that I learned that there was a women's division, I joined as a member. And then after a couple years that I had bought my way out of my W-2, I had the opportunity to start serving in leadership and acquired the rights to operate that. So with partners, I operate Go Abundance Women. We are the tribe of healthy, wealthy, generous women who choose to lead epic lives. We once you get money to a certain point, you realize it's about so much more than that. Like, are you living your relationships in a way that feel totally connected? Are you giving back in a way that really fulfills you? And where do you want to set your goals? If the goal that would fuel your life best is something health right now, let's focus on that. But also playing the business game. We talk a lot about trying to scale our businesses without sacrifice. I want a 9-figure business, but I also want to be the mom that goes on field trips with my kids, right? And I think that a thing that's been missing in a lot of business stuff, you know as well as I do, that not as many women yet at these types of events as I hope for. You guys do an incredible job at courting the women to come to them, and women aren't taking the chance because that's food out of my why would I do that? That's food out of my kid's mouth. Well, the thing that we do really well is we exemplify that you got to show your kids that mom's dreams are worth it, right? So being shoulder to shoulder with people who are scaling these huge businesses and going on field trips with their kids, like that is the thing. How do you do that? Not it must be nice. Show me how. Give me a high five. Let's do the next one together.
Oh, I love it because I'll tell you here at at Equity Launchpad, we have a partners program, but we're going to be announcing more about it next year. But we've brought, operating partners on. We've made some acquisitions. We're learning kind of the template of how we do it. My vision, I cannot wait until we find that right female that wants to do what we do and run a business with us. I have daughters. I have, I have an older sister, and I look at us all, very much the same. Now, we shouldn't be playing the same sports. However, I see everything else very equal in these things, and it's going to be very exciting, to have that. And I think GoBundance could be one of those things that helps us maybe identify and find the right people. It's great. It's the community that we're building.
Yeah, and there's a lot of truth to the phrase here. The average of the 5 people you spend the most around, right? And being around people helps you think bigger, figure out similar problems, figure out how to take, leapfrog what you're doing. And I mean, heck, a lot of the reason we put on the conference is so we can be around other like-minded people. Every conference we put on, every conference we attend, we pick up something new, right? And it's about, not thinking that you're a lone wolf, but instead really figuring out, hey, how do we go accomplish something bigger, better together? And so I totally, big fan and excited to see kind of where GoBundance Women starts to go. Because again, it's a clear lack or a clear gap, right, in the space. And how do you get more people aware that, hey, these things can be done and here's how you go through it, right? So
I love it. I'm looking to put my money where my mouth is, right? Like, we know that women are the better investors. Like, there's studies that exist that show that because women don't take big swings from the jump and they make sure that they've made that metered choices, that their performance on average is better. So I back female-led things, female-led companies, female-led syndicators. So, I love doing business with my guys, and I want to empower more women to take the chance on themselves.
It's powerful. My wife, literally, when I made my solo acquisition in 2019, she said, I don't even need to look at the deal. I don't feel like you should sign the paperwork. And I was like, you don't know, like, what, like, now I'm like, hey, babe, what do you feel? How are you feeling? Like, what do you think? It's like, there's a little bit of that women's intuition that's just different than some of us guys. And so I think that helps lead as well to find the right opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So with that said, we'll go ahead and shift into our rocket round where we ask our guests the same 3 questions. First question, Mandy. Oh, you're going to say something, Casey?
No, you go. Take it.
What do you like to do in your free time?
Oh, my free time. I mean, the 3 children that I keep alive, we do all of the sports. Right now, we are heavy football. My husband's a high school football coach. So it's football for the boys, football for the husband, and singing for the daughter.
Yeah, and you told me this stat, and I didn't realize it, and maybe I don't and you still don't even believe it, right? How many other coaches are on the team?
Well, the junior warriors, they had like 11 or 12 coaches for these little guys. It was bonkers.
No, so you guys are doing some intense coaching there.
I mean, I guess you didn't play football. You're in Texas. Shouldn't you know this?
I should. That's why I'm going to go pay attention next time.
It's a big part.
Stuff is enormous.
All right. So what is your most memorable moment in your business journey?
More than likely, the 2 months into acquisition, just getting newly remarried to my husband and business partner in the car wash, dropping everything in the middle of the brunch to go help fix the wall and make sure we were structurally sound at the car wash. That'll teach you, what ownership really can mean.
All the benefits.
No, that's the thing, people don't realize with any business, you're always on call. Period.
Oh, yeah.
And that just
Always.
The buck ends up stopping, at some point in time with the ownership. So, and then last question, favorite tool or resource? And you can't say GoBundance Women.
So a thing that's kind of been all the hotness in GoBundance that I'm really leaning into too is not just using like an AI tool for asking questions or write me this document or whatever, really turning that into an agent. That setting things up so that, okay, whenever I get Airbnb reviews, like this now agent tool will respond as if it's Lumberjill in a different way every single time, that now no employee has to touch, that Mandy doesn't have to touch, that a lot of that lift is completely handled because of the AI agent.
Nice.
Beautiful. And AI is I was listening to a podcast on the way in. I mean, there's just so many ways that we're learning to use it that can really advance things. And just something as simple as that, that's pretty incredible.
Agreed. And Mandy, how can people get a hold of you? And again, we're going to put all this in the show notes for people, including a link to Go Abundance Woman.
Love it. Everything that I do is on mandymcallister.com. All of my socials are the Mandy McAllister. And actually, we're doing a women's wealth symposium in Dallas. So if anybody's in Texas, I'll make sure that I get you that link too, over International Women's Day. Yeah.
What's the date for that?
It's International Women's Day. So the 7th will be the symposium. And then the next day, we're actually doing a pitch event where we want to turn a bunch of women into business investors.
All right. Awesome. And we'll put a link to that too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Mandy, thank you for spending so much time with us today. Really appreciate it, and excited to continue to hear about your journey.
Likewise.
I love you guys. Seriously, what you're doing is so necessary and so huge. And I'm so grateful to get to be a part of it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the M&A Launchpad Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's podcast and would like to support us, please leave us a rating and a review after you listen. I'm Casey Minshew, and I look forward to talking with you next week.